Hello everyone. Welcome back to this channel. On this occasion, we're once again going to discuss several leaks that I've managed to find and that I think are quite interesting to talk about. As usual, this information comes from sources that are considered fairly credible. Alright, now let's move on to the main topic. A few days ago, we already discussed the preliminary kit of a character who has caught quite a lot of attention from the community, namely Evanescia. In that discussion, we learned that Evanescia has a fairly unique mechanic, the ability to summon a kitsune or fox. A summon mechanic like this immediately sparked a lot of interesting speculation among players. So, for those of you who may not have had the chance to follow that discussion or are still curious about Evanescia's kit details, you can try watching the previous video first to get a more complete picture. On this occasion, we will discuss the preliminary kit of another character who is no less interesting, namely Elation MC, or what is often referred to as EMC, our beloved Trailblazer. This time, the Trailblazer will follow the path of Elation, which has made many players curious about how the gameplay of this newest MC variant will work. Just like the previous preliminary kit discussion, the source of information about EMC's kit still comes from an anonymous source. Therefore, it's very important to emphasize once again that the information we're discussing today should be taken with a grain of salt. Do not immediately assume that all the details discussed here will definitely appear in the beta later, because there is a very high possibility that the preliminary kit we are discussing now might be slightly different, or even very different, from the kit that eventually appears in the beta. Then an interesting question arises. Will this MC variant become a meta character like some previous MC variants? Or will it simply be a situational character? Let's try to break it down one by one. First, let's start with the basic information about EMC. EMC, or Elation MC, is a Trailblazer variant that follows the path of Elation and has the lightning element. With this element, the Trailblazer now has a total of 5 different elements: physical, fire, imaginary, ice, and now lightning. If we look at the list of elements in honkaistarrail, there are currently only 2 elements that the Trailblazer does not yet have, namely wind and quantum. According to information from an anonymous uncle shared by Galaxy Leaks, EMC is said to have a fairly unique mechanic, the ability to copy the Elation skill from a previous teammate. However, in that same information, one part was later corrected. Previously, it was mentioned that EMC could also generate a large number of punchlines. But it was later clarified that this information was not entirely correct. EMC is said not to have the ability to generate punchlines in large quantities. Currently, the character who is truly known as a punchline generating machine is still Sparxie. It's even mentioned that in her character design document, Sparxie was specifically designed to be extremely efficient at generating punchlines. Among recently released characters, none are able to generate punchlines as efficiently as Sparxie. Even so, the skill copying mechanic is still quite interesting. Personally, this mechanic reminds me of characters like Cerydra, who have the ability to copy skills from allies. If this concept is truly implemented for EMC, then it's possible that EMC will function as a sort of Cerydra for teams focused on the path of Elation. Now we move on to the main information from another anonymous source. It should be noted that this anonymous source is different from the anonymous uncle mentioned earlier by Galaxy Leaks. According to this source, EMC's skill will provide a buff to one specific character. The buff includes an increase in respawn and attack. In addition, the skill will also increase the percentage of Elation damage received by the buffed character. The increase in Elation damage is said to be around 25%, although the number still has a question mark, meaning the value is not yet confirmed. If we compare this with characters like Yaoguang, who can provide Elation damage buffs to all allies, then EMC appears to take a slightly different approach because the buff is only applied to a single character. Next, we move on to the ultimate. According to the anonymous source, EMC's ultimate will grant 25 punchline charge stacks and increase the damage of Great Boon, which scales based on a percentage of Trailblazer's attack. If this information is correct, then EMC will most likely be a character who needs a fairly high attack stat to maximize the potential of the buffs provided. However, this is where an interesting contradiction appears. This information seems to conflict with the earlier statement from Anonymous Uncle, who said that EMC cannot generate large amounts of punchlines. Meanwhile, according to this anonymous source, EMC's ultimate can provide up to 25 punchlines at once, which is quite a large number. If we consider the credibility of the sources, the anonymous uncle shared by Galaxy Leaks currently has a clearer and more credible track record compared to this other anonymous source. Therefore, once again, I want to emphasize that this kit information should not immediately be considered factual. Finally, we move on to the Elation skill section. According to this anonymous source, every time a high instant is triggered, all enemies will receive a vulnerability debuff. At the same time, a high instant and Great Boon will deal damage that scales based on the Trailblazer's attack percentage. In addition, there is also an additional mechanic. Whenever an enemy is defeated, EMC will automatically gain 5 additional punchline charges. This mechanic is quite interesting because it can help generate punchlines more quickly, especially in endgame modes like Pure Fiction that feature multiple waves. If we look at all the information shared by this anonymous source, there is actually something quite interesting. The kit described in this leak does not show any mechanic for copying Elation skills from allies, which was previously mentioned by the anonymous uncle. This raises several possibilities. It could be that this anonymous source does not know the character's full mechanics, or perhaps the skill copying mechanic does exist but was simply not mentioned in this leak. However, if we only look at the kit described in this leak, EMC does not seem to bring a truly unique mechanic, unlike the new Trailblazer paths we've seen previously. This is certainly an interesting point to question. Could it be that EMC appears simpler because we already received an Elation support character like Yaoguang earlier? But if EMC really turns out to be like this, could there be another character designed to replace EMC's role, considering that this MC variant seems fairly ordinary? But once again, I must remind you that all the information discussed today comes from anonymous sources whose credibility is still uncertain. Therefore, there is a very high chance that the actual kit will be quite different from what we discussed today once the beta finally begins. That concludes our discussion of the latest Honkai starrail developments that we could share on this occasion. We truly appreciate your attention and the time you've taken to watch this video until the end. Of course, we are also very interested in hearing your thoughts and reactions regarding the information we discussed today. What do you think about the possible kit for EMC? Do you think the mechanics sound interesting, or do they feel less unique compared to previous MC variants? Feel free to share your opinions, analysis, and personal perspectives in the comments section below. Your discussions will certainly make this topic far more interesting. Don't forget to share this video with your fellow Honkai starrail players who might also be interested in the latest developments surrounding the game. Your support through likes and subscriptions will greatly help this channel continue to grow and bring more interesting discussions, in-depth analysis, and the latest information about Honkai starrail in the future. Thank you for your attention, and see you in the next discussion.